Welcome, everybody. We're so glad you're here. It's been a while, but
couple
I
couple years. Better late
it's
than
been a
never.
couple
Hey,
years.
that was the practice run. Now we're here and we're doing it for real.
Exactly. Now you're the one in the bedroom.
Oh my God.
And look at it. You've got like your comforter is nice and folded and all that.
Well, yeah, I knew we were
Um,
gonna do this right here, so of course I made my bed. So
exactly, exactly. Well, today we're going to be talking about 1989's When Harry Met Sally. Jake, what do you enjoy When Harry Met Sally? Is this your favorite rom com?
uh, it'd be hard to pick my favorite rom-com because there's so many good ones, but this one is definitely up there. It's got Billy Crystal, Meg Ryan, Rob Reiner directs it, hilarious. Carrie Fisher and what's his name?
Rob Reiner.
Yeah, I was thinking of who
Oh,
plays Jess. Bruno Kirby.
Bruno Kirby.
But those are kind of obviously Billy Crystal is Harry, and he meets Meg Ryan, who is Sally. Those are our two leads. But then Carrie Fisher's character of Marie and Bruno Kirby's character of Jess kind of support that. But those four really, it makes
They
this
carry the movie.
incredibly. It's an incredible movie. It's incredibly funny without having jokes. You know what I
And
mean?
I think that is so. And I don't know if you mentioned, yeah, Nora Ephron. She wrote it, and she is well known, especially in the '90s, for doing a bunch of different rom
Oh yeah,
coms.
Sleepless in
Um,
Seattle, also with Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks there.
You've Got Mail. Did she
She
write
did
that
that
too?
too. Yeah,
Did she do one of the movies we're going to be talking about this month for February is Return to Me? I can't remember if she did that or not.
I don't know about.
I don't know, but she she has this style that I think the reason it's so funny is because it's so relatable,
Oh yeah, for
right? We don't
sure.
have these caricature characters that, um, like if you were to think of a lot of comedies today, they're outrageous. Somebody like a Seth Rogen in Pineapple Express, for instance, they're these kind of larger than life characters, but these ones are so relatable and they're
It's
normal. And I think that's where a lot of the humor comes from. It's looking at yourself and saying, okay, I'm putting myself in their shoes. That's how I would react to.
it's so real because this was born out of real life. A lot of this. We Nora Ephron wrote it. She definitely wrote the screenplay, but a lot of this comes out of the friendship between Nora Ephron and Rob Reiner. They were friends before they decided to make this, and it was Rob Reiner's going through a divorce, and so that kind of pushed them into teaming up for this project. And then Rob Reiner and Billy Crystal are such good friends. A lot of the dialogue is born out of especially the dialogue between um, Harry and Jess in the movie. So much of that dialogue, Billy Crystal and Rob Reiner both attribute it to as coming from their own friendship, things that they would talk about, experiences they've had. So I think it's relatable because it's so real and it's born out of realism. I mean, even another point, I love all the sit down scenes with the random couples, that kind of break up. Not, I
Yeah.
wouldn't call them acts, but kind of break up the different chunks of the movie, right?
Mhm.
Wonderful narrative device. I love it because with every time we see one of those, we know there's a passage of time, right?
Right.
And so it propels the story forward in a really fun and creative way. Those were all actors that did those scenes and um, read those lines and whatnot, but those were real stories that Rob Reiner compiled when they sat down to make this movie. And he kind of came up with this idea of like, hey, let's have like real couple stories. He sat down and talked to real couples, and those are their stories, like I said, portrayed by actors, but those are real people's love stories. So I mean, even from that aspect, that just adds another layer of realism, because let's face it, real life is funny. It's either funny or sad. If
Yeah.
if you can't laugh
There's
at
no
your
in
own
between.
life,
There's no in
it's
between.
it's going to be sad. So kids out there watching this, just laugh. Learn to laugh at yourself and you'll go far in life.
Oh, 100%. And I see, I didn't know that about Nora and Rob and
Mhm.
kind of their friendship. That's fascinating. Because you're absolutely right. This movie, you can tell that it's been created by people that are friends.
Yeah,
It's
100%.
not like, okay, I'm gonna go get a DP or some random guy, and we're gonna have to essentially become fast friends in order to make this movie. You can tell that they're like a close knit group, and that makes complete sense why they have Billy Crystal in this instead of somebody like a Tom Hanks, um, which like literally basically every rom com I can ever think of has Tom Hanks in it.
Well, yeah, because he's like
He's the king.
he is the king, but
He's
for
the
that
king.
late 80s into the 90s, like he is like the clean cut leading man of Hollywood in that time. Like, he's the quintessential good guy, you know?
Right, right.
Tom Hanks, brief tangent here. I love the Graham Norton show. Those who don't
Yes,
know who the Graham Norton show is, look it up. It's a
iconic.
British
It's iconic.
talk show, late night talk show. Hilarious. I love it. Can't get enough of it. And Tom Hanks went on there one time and talked, and Graham asked him what his dream role would play. Tom Hanks goes in the story. He's like, I would love to play a Bond villain, but I can never play a Bond villain because I've been known as the good guy, and he goes on this whole thing. He's just like, you can't have a Bond villain that sounds like Woody, you know. A Bond villain can't say, "No, Mr. Bond, I hope you die. Haha, come on, gang, let's go like rob the Bank of England." Like, that doesn't work. And
Come on,
so,
gang. Let's go rob the bank.
but you see what I mean? Like, he is such the quintessential good guy.
And that's why, actually, and then we'll get back on topic, we
Yeah.
promise. But in the movie Elvis that came out this past year, it was so interesting because Tom Hanks played Colonel Parker, who is the antagonist of the movie,
Yeah.
one of them. And
Excuse me.
that was such an interesting turn for him because, yeah, you're right. He always plays the good guy. And it's kind of like, I mean, there are people that always play the bad guy. Mads Mikkelsen, he like always plays the bad guy in everything, or a character whose motives aren't necessarily clear. I mean, speaking of almost like, I don't want to say typecast roles, but in a way, I mean, Meg Ryan is in this,
Yeah.
right? To get back to what we were talking about. And I mean, she was Hollywood's girl next door in a way.
So.
Somebody that I mean, she was like in a ton of different rom-coms, and she was known for that. She actually made an effort to try and not be in a rom-com and maybe play a little bit more of a risque character, and that kind of tanked her career. So she just was always known for, I mean, even in Top Gun, she's in Top Gun, and she's like the sweet kind of wife to Goose.
She's married,
Yeah. And she's in this too. And this is earlier Meg Ryan.
Yeah, she's only 28 when the movie's shot.
Yeah. Yeah, as compared to Billy Crystal.
Yeah, he was 40 when they made this movie. So yeah, it's such a stark age difference, 12 years. Like, I read that and I'm just like, oh my God, like
that's wild.
That's kind of creepy.
That is wild.
But in the same way, like, they make it work. Like, they don't feel like there's 12 years apart. And that kind of plays in, talking about age, that plays into another thing I really enjoy about the movie is we see these characters at different points in their life. It starts in 1977, and if I did my math right, we end in 1989.
Yes.
New Year's Day, 1989. Well, I guess then there's the end scene of Harry and Sally sitting.
Well, that was only 3 months after that.
Yeah, you're right. So early 1989. That's 12 years there, and I think the characters move through time very well in this movie, right? You have some movies that we have jumps in time and it's not believable with their characters. I don't believe that they're acting older. I don't believe that they're looking older. I think I'm willing to, shall we say, forgive not looking older if they're acting older, if they're selling it with their performance. I don't notice, the hairstyle or the makeup, but right. I think they really sell it in this movie. At the beginning, I believe even though Billy Crystal's 40 years old. I know that in my mind. I believe he just graduated college. Don't you?
Wild if you just graduated college and you were 40. But yes, no, I completely agree. That's one of the things that I noticed about this movie is I thought they did such a good job of showing a change in character, and it wasn't stark. But I think especially Billy Crystal, but even Meg Ryan as well, their philosophy on dating and marriage and things like that changed drastically from beginning to end. But
for sure,
it happens in such a way, like I said, it's not stark because we see different periods in their life, and so it's way more organic. But just thinking about I especially like Billy Crystal, like Harry's transformation is somebody that is kind of a skeptic and a little bit full of himself, that he knows everything about dating and things like that. And then you see this transformation after he's married and getting his divorce. He's like, actually, I was wrong, essentially, about it all. And he actually flips a lot, especially right out of the gate after getting divorced. And so Meg Ryan kind of has to pull him back in. But Meg Ryan as well, her character, Sally, she also goes through a significant change. A little bit more seasoned, a little bit more, she's learned, right, through experience. And that to me is something I noticed that they did extremely well in this movie.
Yeah. I think, you talk about how the characters change throughout the movie. I think if you look at how they start the movie, it's very, organic that they've just come out of college, because they both have perspectives that I think, when you've completed high school or completed college,
you think you know everything.
You want to look, yeah, you want to look at Harry, and he knows everything, and he's cynical. I know how the world works, and I know that this, and I know that everyone wants to have sex with everybody, and I know that blah blah. I know everything. Yeah. And I think then to play opposite of that, you have Meg Ryan, who's so optimistic, who's so hopeful, and I think that's also a natural thing of someone, you come out of school, is you're like, okay, like she says she's going to New York because she wants to go to journalism school and become a reporter. She's like, I got my path. I'm going to go do this, and then everything's going to be great. And that's also not what happens. Right. It's not, we don't really know what Sally does for work, or at least it didn't jump out at me. If
she gets the bag.
Yes, she gets the bag.
She gets that bag.
But, like, it's not all hunky dory, like she goes through relationship troubles and bad points in her life. So it's natural.
I think the standout performance for me, other than Harry and Sally, would be Carrie Fisher's character. Carrie Fisher is notorious, and my guess is that this happened on this film as well. Even though Nora Ephron is somebody that takes control of her script, Carrie Fisher is a ghostwriter. And what that means is not that she, worked for Mystery Incorporated, but like zoinks. But she helped doctors. She's a script doctor. She helped with different scenes. If it didn't feel right, it didn't seem, but you definitely get vintage Carrie Fisher comedy too. Mm-hmm. She was a deft comedian. And you didn't get that in Star Wars necessarily. I mean, aren't you a little short to be a stormtrooper? Kind of those jabs. Yeah. But get that walking carpet out of my way. But this is especially a very strong performance from her as Marie that, I don't know, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I didn't see Princess Leia. And I actually think that it's really important. I didn't see Princess Leia, but I thought she gave a really good performance. And
because this is what Return of the Jedi is, what, 83?
83. Yeah. So this was 6 years.
This is 6 years after, she spent 6 years playing Princess Leia. And then this is 6 years later. So to be able to step away from such an iconic performance and show that, like, no, I don't have to play a swashbuckling space princess. Like, I can be someone like
As
in her
cool
30s
as
too.
that is.
Yeah, that would be really cool. But like, she could also play someone like, in her 30s living in New York, going through, life like everyone else does.
And shout out to the Rolodex. She has this Rolodex that she pulls out, and then she's like, I don't find him cute, but I think you will. And she goes,
Yeah.
and Sally goes, you tried to set me up with him like 6 years ago. And then the other person, she said somebody else, and they're like, he's married. And she goes, married. Puts it back in. And
But didn't get rid of the card.
I low key, I think that was a Carrie Fisher move.
No, but that's the joke. That's like the deep level joke there is like that little detail that she didn't throw away the card when he was married, because she's just like, well, as we see in the movie, she is kind of a mistress and sees a married guy for
kind of
most of the movie, and so it's like,
please say yes.
Yeah,
he didn't even come home. That's like some me level stuff. That's like something I would do. Just like craft a scenario that it implies one thing, and then like the person never even shows up.
Yeah.
But enough about me, right? One of the things that I wanted to mention specifically is that this movie, Jake, I don't know if you know this, it only had a domestic release.
Really?
Yes, which is fascinating. It was not carried overseas. No, but they didn't do an international release. They eventually played it in like the United Kingdom and Australia. But I actually think that speaks a lot to rom-coms in that a lot of them depend on where they're being made and who they're being made for. I think, especially in America, the humor is very difficult between cultures. If it's not physical comedy, stuff can get lost in translation for sure. But especially this movie, it has such an American sensibility to it. I mean, they sing Surrey with a fringe on top.
Yeah.
Right. From Oklahoma. But it has such an American sensibility that I think that it just would not translate well internationally. And so as a result, I think the movie only made here. Let me double check this. It only made 93 million all time. And the domestic was 92.8 million.
Wow.
So for 1989, basically, that's the domestic opening was 1 million. That's not terrible. That's not what you would want to see today, but also it was a different time in 1989, as you can tell by some of the things in the movie, specifically, when they go, speaking of Surrey with the fringe on top, to Sharper Image, and they have that karaoke machine that literally is so old.
Yeah.
And they talk on the landline telephone.
Oh, yeah.
And then Harry leaves.
They have Rolodexes.
Yeah, they have Rolodexes. I mean, just the whole thing. But apparently they had Evian water. So every time I see this movie, I'm like, that is the biggest product placement. It's just like she didn't get water out of the tap. Evian. I pour the Evian water.
Which, like, I get it. You live in a city, your water's probably not that great, and this was a time before Brita filters and whatnot. But you could have taken the label off.
You could have taken the label off or put it in like, but okay. I won't psychoanalyze that, because you're right. I probably would have done the same thing. So, don't expose me. Don't at me. I think kind of going into a Rosebud and Thorn.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, and actually, let's have you go. Why don't we have you go first?
My Rosebud.
I want your Rosebud and Thorn. And so if you don't have a Rosebud or Thorn, that is fine. But I'd like to hear what you kind of think.
So I have all three because I really pushed myself to come up with all three. The Rose was easy. Mm-hmm. It's Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan. Like, without this movie, or I should say without them, this movie sucks. Because it's just, it does. Like, think about it. If you have, when the movie's literally called When Harry Met Sally, if you have two average performers in Harry and Sally, like
That's an L.
gonna
Yeah.
suck.
Yeah.
So my rose goes to both of them. Like their performance, their chemistry is just so great in this movie. My bud is going to be really superficial. It's Billy Crystal's hair. Okay, like Billy
Them
Crystal, if
sideburns
you
at the
ever see
beginning,
this,
ain't
first of
it?
all, hi, but second of all, like, don't hate me for this. Just there are sometimes like it's fine, and then there are other times I caught myself being like, what is he doing with his hair? Like it's like slicked back, but like blown out at the same time. Now I like Harry with the beard. I like
I do
Harry with the
too.
beard, and I
I
feel
did
like
too.
I'm glad they have times when he has a beard and when he doesn't, because I feel like that's a very natural thing you do in like your 20s and 30s is you experiment with facial hair. We say as two people who have facial hair right now.
Mhm. You know, I
So
haven't been clean shaven in 3 years.
I haven't been clean shaven in like I haven't been
Well,
clean
there's a
shaven
picture.
since
There's a picture from when we went as the
we went
Corleones.
as Vito and Michael Corleone to a Halloween party. That would have been what, my sophomore year of college, your
I
junior
think
year.
so. And so you
So
only had a mustache
that's
and I
fall
was
of
clean shaven.
2018, Halloween 2018, and
Good
I
times.
shaved down to just the mustache. We'll show you the picture, um, but I shaved down
I mean,
just the
look at those two
mustache.
studs right there.
Yeah. And then I clean shaved after that because unless I'm wearing the full shebang, like mustache just didn't work.
And that's not a slight on you or on mustaches. It's
No,
just,
some people pull off a mustache. I can't.
somebody said, maybe it was you that said I looked like Super Mario when I only had a mustache.
I think it was me.
And
If I
that
didn't
was
say
really
it, then
mean.
I agree with it. But getting back on track with my thorn, um, it has to be Meg Ryan singing "Surrey with a Fringe on Top."
Yeah,
It's
that was
so
a good one.
bad. She is wonderful at everything except singing. It's
I
so
agree.
bad. And like it's funny because it's bad, and like it's uncomfortable because it's bad, which like almost in a strange way like foreshadows the like Harry's discomfort because he sees oh, what's Helen, that's his
Helen.
ex-wife, sees Helen with her new husband in the department store, and that's very uncomfortable. They like don't say anything. It's such an uncomfortable situation. So like the
Ira.
discomfort. Ira. Ira, like I feel like if you're gonna be named Ira, like you have to come out of the womb like with an AARP card.
Yeah.
Like, do you qualify for Social Security benefits? Do you qualify for Medicare Part D if you're named Ira as a
You do.
child? I think you
That, yeah.
should.
Yeah. It's like your grandfathered in, you
Exactly.
know? But
So,
yeah, no,
though,
those are
yeah,
all
that's my rosebud and thorn.
those are
So,
really good. My Rosebud and Thorn, for me, the performances are definitely the rose. I always feel like when I watch a film and I really can relate to a performance, I feel like these performances are really relatable. That goes over the top for me. So that's definitely my rose. My thorn is, I agree with you. Some of the little like quirks of um, Meg Ryan like singing "Surrey with the French on top" and Billy Crystal's sideburns just ain't it. They're not it. And then even I know this is like important for the character, but the way Sally is kind of super extra
yeah,
kind of annoyed me just a smidge. But my bud, um, I don't really have a bud.
yeah.
This movie, to me, I love this. This is my favorite rom com. We're gonna do a little segment here where um, we tell each other what character we think we are or they are. So, for
Mm-hmm.
instance, with me, uh, I think I think that you are I think you're Carrie Fisher.
Really?
I was thinking about this
Why?
because you're very encouraging.
Okay.
You're also very funny.
Hmm.
Um, and she is very wise. And one of the things you are very wise, especially when it comes to dating advice. As two guys that really don't date much, you always
Call
have
me.
very good. Yeah. Oh,
Slide in those DMs, please.
don't.
Drier than the Sahara.
Good Lord. So I really like. I thought about
Yeah,
this, and you just encapsulate Marie.
really.
Um, and hey, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Uh, but
No, it's
also
funny
the
that you
fact that
say no. Go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say, and finally the fact that she quotes one of Jess's like articles to him. I was like, that is so Jake.
Yeah, I would do
Like
that.
you would quote an article to like that I wrote to
Yeah,
me and not realize, like I no,
yeah.
you'd realize it, but you also, I mean, you can pull quotes from different books. I mean, look at all the books back there.
A lot of them. A lot of
Yeah,
them.
there are a lot of them back there. So, anyway, so I think
No,
you are Marie.
yeah. It's funny you think that I'm Marie because if I had to pick a character for myself, I think I would have picked Jess.
I thought about
Just because,
maybe
yeah.
Jess.
I think the things you're talking about with Marie, like, okay, you're probably right. I'm probably more like Marie than I am like Jess. But anyways, and now who do I think Ben is? You talked about how nitpicky Meg Ryan's character of Sally is, and you are a particular person yourself, Mr. Sparrow. If you've never gone out and had a meal with this guy, nothing can come as it is. Now, granted, like
That's
you're
not
gluten.
always my fault.
No, it's not like you're gluten intolerant. So like, it's not. I'm not. It's not your fault. I'm not like upset at you about it or anything, but like it always has to be, can I get, what do you always get from Chick-fil-A? It's the salad with no cheese and you
Yeah, I get a spicy Southwest salad, no cheese blend, add avocado lime ranch.
yes,
And then if we were to go to Jimmy John's, I get a number 9,
unwich,
unwich
add hot
with no
peppers,
cheese and
no
add hot
cheese.
peppers.
Yeah,
Yep.
which the
So
hot, you gotta add the
that's
hot peppers.
I man, I kind of
So
feel exposed because I
you
never think about that.
you are Sally.
I
God
I
love you, but you
actually
are Sally.
I mean, I texted you today because I finished watching the movie again today. And I texted you and I literally said, crap, I'm Sally, aren't I? And you said a little bit because I'm hopelessly romantic,
Yeah.
but also a little aloof when it comes to romance too.
Yeah.
But I also like know what I want.
Yeah, and you're also a planner, which I think
I
Sally
am
is
a
too.
planner.
You're a planner that like, when you call me about, a relationship or a girl you like, it's always just like, well, I'm going to do this, and she's going to do that, and blah, blah, blah. And I always feel like I have to be the one to remind you, like, take one step at a time and see how
Yeah.
it goes. And I feel like,
I'm just getting exposed left and right
I feel
today.
like
That's
Sally, oh, there will be times you exposed me too. So, but
yeah, but
no,
not like anyway. No, I'm not mad.
we'll just cut that. Stop right
Yeah.
there.
I no, I completely agree that I'm Sally.
Yeah. Except you don't fake orgasms in delis. Thank God.
And that scene was, as the kids would say, clowning.
It is. Okay. So that story actually came about in pre-production, Meg Ryan and Nora Ephron and Rob Reiner and Billy Crystal all sitting around in the room, and they started talking, and Nora Ephron brought up the fact about women faking orgasms. And Rob Reiner couldn't believe it. He was like, women don't fake orgasms. And she's like, yeah, they do. Like, it's a thing. And so like that funny moment like was born out of that conversation. And then, Meg Ryan was like, we got to put this in the movie. Like, this is hilarious. Like, Sally should fake an orgasm. And then Billy Crystal's like, yeah, like a really public place, like a restaurant. And you think I'm pulling this out of my rear end. this is Billy Crystal's memoir here. Still fooling him.
Right.
Highly recommend it. It's a great
So
book.
good. It's
but
really
he
good.
talks about it for pages in here, and it's hilarious. Highly recommend you go get that book if you enjoy this movie or Billy Crystal at all. Anyway, so then they're talking about faking the orgasm, and Billy's like, and then an old woman should be like, I'll have what she's having. And then the old woman
legendary.
turns out to, you know who the old woman is.
Isn't that Rob Reiner's mom?
It's Estelle Reiner, Rob Reiner's mother. And so they get to the day they're going to shoot it. And Billy talks about in his book how he and Meg Ryan would call each other a lot at the end of the day and like kind of debrief, much like you see, you know, Harry and Sally do in this movie.
Yeah, interesting. Okay.
It's interesting kind of how that parallel that was something they did in real life. And Meg had said like, oh, I'm kind of nervous about this orgasm scene, blah, blah, blah. And it comes up. And so like they're rehearsing and they light it, they get set for the day. And the first couple takes, and Meg's not really like going for it. You know, she's doing it, but it's not the scene that you end up seeing. And so Rob Reiner ends up being like, no, here, let me do it. And he's the one that sits down and it's like, oh God, yes. And like starts going wild for it. And then like, she's like, just like that. And then they do it and Sally nails it. You know, Meg Ryan nails the performance, and Sally, you know, it's the big over the top orgasm that we see in the movie. And Billy comes up to Rob after the take, and Rob's just like, no, I shouldn't have done that. And Billy's like, no, it was great. You know, you got the performance at a Meg. It was great. That's the way it should be in the movie. And Rob Reiner says, no, not that. I just had an orgasm in front of my mother.
Those guys are legends.
No wonder that this movie is so funny, because like when that's genuinely
hilarious.
like the people that make it, they're that funny.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. I think, yeah, because I knew about that being Rob Reiner's mother.
Yeah, it's funny.
I think like going into some closing thoughts.
Yeah.
This movie, it's like a warm blanket for me. It's something that, you know, I'm single, and I think like with me, like I would love for this to be like my story.
Yeah.
I think it's compelling, so compelling. And I think the music from Harry Connick Jr., but just the mise en scène of it, for some reason, it's just warm to me.
Yeah.
It's something that I also think it's maybe a little bit encouraging.
It is.
Right?
Yeah.
And
it starts from a very like pessimistic, you know, point of view. And, you know, I feel like we have to kind of get into this question that's posed at the beginning of the film. Can men and women just be friends? Right? You know, it starts, Harry's the one that introduces this question and goes in this whole theory about how like men and women can't just be friends because, you know, eventually the man wants to have sex with the woman and then the sex ruins everything and they can't, you know, that's why. And that's a very pessimistic thing, you know,
right.
That's not encouraging.
But yet that actually kind of happens in the movie.
Yeah, it's weird. I was talking about this with my roommate Tanner, your former roommate Tanner. We love Tanner.
Tanner City.
Yeah, he has to guest star sometime on this podcast.
Oh, 100%. I just want him to walk through that door.
Anyways, I was talking with my roommate Tanner about this, and it's like, yes, the movie kind of answers its own question, which I think is, you know, part of the reason why the story is so good, because it's exploring, can men and women just be friends? And Harry and Sally start off not as friends, and then they become friends, and then they start to get feelings for each other, right? So they end up sleeping together. When Meg Ryan finds out her ex is getting married, they end up sleeping together, and then that kind of ruins their friendship for a bit. But it's through kind of that healing of their relationship that they realize like they're more than just friends, like they're meant to be together. And that the movie comes, you know, to its resolution.
Oh,
yeah.
I don't want to cry. But no, I, because the question, if we're to answer the
Yeah.
question,
What do you think? Can men and women just be friends?
when Harry adds those stipulations,
Hmm.
right, when they're leaving the plane and they're on that walkway, and he essentially says, like, if the woman is attractive and you find her attractive, can you just be her friend? My thoughts may change on this in the upcoming years. I don't think so. I mean, yes, we can pretend all, as the day is long.
Hmm.
But if we're looking at our heart specifically, I think that's some dangerous ground. That's a fine line, fine balance that, because I'm like trying to think of myself, if there are any people that are that I'm friends with that I find attractive, but yet will never date, and not
Yeah.
because they're married
Yeah.
or dating somebody else, and
Hmm.
I think just how humans are, we're creative creatures, we're curious creatures, and I definitely think our minds can definitely slip into that. I'm not trying to like preach or anything. That's not what I'm getting at
Yeah.
all. But I think for me, I think the movie proves that if it's up to the will of the two people and there are no third parties involved, no.
Hmm. Interesting.
What do you think?
Because see, um, I think that they can be friends, but I think this movie proves um, proves an important factor, an important element uh, of friendships and especially relationships, especially at that point in life. Like we're both in our early to mid 20s, so we're
Right.
kind of we're kind of at the same place when Harry and Sally
Started.
start this movie. So, like you said, this my thoughts could change on this as I get older and go through life and whatnot, because life has a funny way of showing you when you think you know everything. That's when it shows you you know nothing.
Amen to that,
Um,
brother.
and I think that yes, men and women can just be friends, but I think there comes a point in a friendship, like as not, I'm not
Mhm.
talking just like a close acquaintanceship or whatever, like an actual true friendship, like you feel like you can rely on this person and count on them and you're bonding with them, right? I think there comes a point in every friendship between a man and a woman where the question of dating comes up. I don't agree
Yeah,
with Harry that it's always sexual, right? But there
I don't
is.
either. Yeah.
I think of my close friends who are women, and like in every one of those friendships there has come a point where I'm like, should I try dating this person? And you know I think that's an important juncture that you come to, and you have to address as a friendship whether yes, this is someone I want to try pursue in a relationship, or no, I think we're better just as friends, and both options are okay, right? I think I'm a big believer in being friends before being in a relationship.
Yeah,
I
which
think
is
that.
I am too, but yet I've failed to do that.
Oh yeah, I'm
So
a
I
terrible
can't, like, I
track
don't.
record. Maybe I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
I
I'm like, one day it'll happen.
maybe I'm just doing it wrong, right?
Yeah, I'm like,
But I don't know if I could necessarily like go up and like pursue a relationship with a woman without like knowing her at least a little bit first. So that's why
right.
I always try to be friends with someone and then pursue the relationship. But I think when you come to that juncture and being able to be adults and be like, no, I don't think this would, you know, I don't think we as a couple would work out. We work out as friends, but I don't know if we could work out as a couple, and being adult enough to look at the other person, or look at yourself, don't always have
Right.
to broach this subject with the other person. If in your own heart, like, so and so, like, we get along great, we're great friends, but I think that's all we're ever going to be. But you have that lingering question, like being adult enough to be like, no, like we're just friends. And so I think that's why truly as adults, men and women can just be friends.
I think you bring up a lot of really interesting points. I think for me though, just looking at it, I mean, you got to have that intentionality,
Oh yeah.
right? I mean, you can't. I think it's really dangerous when you both are thinking it and never bringing it up, right? We see
Yeah.
that in this movie. They're both thinking
Yeah.
it.
They both come to that
And
crossroads, and it. I almost wonder what would the movie have looked like if they would have brought it up before they slept together.
oh, it would have been shorter by at least half an
Well,
hour
yeah,
because they would have gotten
but
together.
yeah, you know what I mean. Like if they would have broached that subject without having sex first,
Right.
I
And
just
I
think that would
think,
be interesting.
yeah, yeah. And I really think that, you have to, you're absolutely right. You have to be an adult about it. But, and again, I don't want to get super philosophical or super
Yeah,
religious, but, the Bible talks about, guarding your heart because it's deceitful among all things. And I think we see that, um, like in our own worlds,
yeah,
it's so important to, um, when you have a friendship, especially like with the woman or with a guy, uh, to be very cognizant of how it can be construed.
mhm,
That's why certain friends of mine I text, and I'm not trying to say holier than thou. It's not what I'm getting at, but my point is you have to be careful, and I think you see that in this movie.
yeah,
You know, it's feelings can be you can have the perfect person, but if you do something the wrong way, it could all fall apart.
exactly.
Um, so yeah, I think for like I said, closing up, this movie for me is just it's a little inspirational. It's
Oh,
also
it's
something
very
that
hopeful. It's very
it's so
hopeful
hopeful. And
because
you know how
it's
legendary that would be for this to happen to one of us. That'd be
oh
legendary.
iconic. Um, but it's it may not happen, and that's okay. But I think it's very hopeful. It takes a very hopeful look at relationships, and I think really even in a way like these are two people that have come into this relationship with like a decent amount of baggage,
Yeah.
right? Like Harry's got a divorce. He's healing from that and going through all that. And here Sally has her own baggage of previous relationships and where she's at in life. And when they come to that kind of juncture of is this going to work as a relationship, I think it shows that you don't have to be a perfect person to have a perfect relationship.
Yeah. Man, that was a word. That was really inspirational.
Yeah.
Even for me. That was good to hear. But overall, what would you grade this A to F?
I would say it's an A.
I
As much as I
would
don't want to give it an A, like it's an A. Like this is a really good
yeah.
movie.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking while I was watching this, I was like, crap, this is such a good movie. This is such a good movie.
It is good.
So I'd also give it an A. But anyway, that's it. We finally are back after many a year.
Yeah.
And by many I mean two, and I definitely didn't just knock my camera a little bit. But we have some plans to maybe make this not just a once a year thing,
Yeah.
which includes us doing it every week.
Yeah. We
And
got a plan. We have a schedule. We have graphics.
it's color coordinated. We're also hopefully going to be doing some reviews.
Yeah. Maybe get up a website.
Maybe
We've
get up
got
a
plans.
website. We've got plans.
We got plans. So buckle
And
up. Hit that subscribe button.
oh, for sure. Hit that like button.
You want to stay on.
Right.
Stay on for the ride.
Next week, I believe it's If Beale Street Could Talk.
Yes. Because not only we're talking about romance movies because it is the month of February, the month of love, but it's also Black History Month. So we wanted to highlight a movie that had from a Black filmmaker with a predominantly Black cast because
fantastic film.
Fantastic, so good. And Hollywood has long had a lot of racial disparities as far as representation and who gets to tell their stories. And so we thought this was a really well done film and a film that we wanted to share with you and make sure you could see it. So we're gonna talk about If Beale Street Could Talk.
Yeah. So we will see y'all next week.
Yep.
And cut.